Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Williams. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Williams. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Welcome to Politics Done Right. This is Egberto Williams. We are going to have a great show for you today. It seems like we started the show without audio. So let me go ahead and go into some of the things that we discussed throughout the where I begin. I said, right now there is something happening in the country. New polls have just come out. And a lot of Americans are scared to death because inside of these polls, in as much as Biden has a 9-point lead nationally against Donald Trump, in as much as Elizabeth Warren has an 8-point lead on top of Donald Trump, what is turning out is that most people believe that, oh my God, in the, guess what? The battleground states, Pennsylvania, Iowa, Wisconsin, Michigan, and all these states, we are currently having some issues because guess what? It turns out that it seems we are not doing very well. To some, we are not doing very well. So, where are we? And let me go ahead and try to get some output here because as it turns out, it seems like some of the folks are not hearing over the telephone. So what we need to do is go ahead and I think fix that with the telephone and we'll be right there. Bear with me, folks. Bear with me. I'm almost there. So let's go ahead and go to the phone. Now that it's connected to the phone and it's working correctly. All right. So a lot of folks are concerned. Because in the battleground states, it seems like Donald Trump has a possibility of winning. So we could win by 10 million votes. The popular vote could be by 10 million votes. And somehow Donald Trump still pulls it out. Let me tell you something, folks. Don't believe that. Work it. Do not believe it. Work it. What I'm trying to tell you is that there's so much happening in this country right now that we can take care of if we don't have any fear. The polls are actually saying in the middle states that, oh, wow, well, it seems like Biden is the best person to beat Donald Trump if the contest were held today. Let me tell you something, people. Don't buy into any of these things right now at all. First of all, I will dispute that Biden can win. I will dispute that. In my humble opinion, based on everything I know about politics, it is impossible for Biden to win. The other thing is people say, oh, this country is not ready to elect a woman. And in fact, when they did some tests and asked some questions, most Republicans didn't want a woman elected. It's amazing. I don't remember if it's a majority or a plurality, one or the other. And you sit down there and everybody balks. Oh, my God, a woman can't win. So our default is either Bernie or Biden. And you know they don't want Bernie. That socialist, we don't want him. Folks, let me tell you. First of all, believe none of it. The truth of the matter is when we have a one-on-one race, after we've decided in the Democratic Party who best represent the values of most Democrats. All right, folks, we are back here at Politics Done Right. We've been having technical difficulties today, mostly because we believe it has to do with the new software that we just installed, the new version of the software. Thank you so kindly for sticking around with us. We couldn't do this without you. Anyhow, I'm going to go into my monologue until we build a little bit more audience. and then we'll effectively go into the program. For those of you who are returning, those of you who've been here before, bear with the beginning that I'm going to have again with regards to the polls. I'm going to ask you not to particularly listen to the polls right now. They are currently meaningless. What we do want to do is work our butts off in avenues where we can make a difference. And where is it that we can make a difference? We can make a difference by supporting the progressive candidates that we want to start, that we want to give some impetus to right now. We can also start making sure that we support all those agencies that are supporting the progressive narrative. Meaning, and this may be self-serving, but meaning we want to support those media outlets that are pushing our message. We want to support all these different areas that we know are going to reach the people that need to get reached. What's occurring right now is the media has decided because again, you know who runs the media, who the masters are. They have decided who the main candidates are going to be. They have decided that the person who is to run against Donald Trump is Joe Biden. They have decided all these things for you already. And for those who say, that's not really true. Well, if you take a look at how the polling is done, if you take a look at how the questioning is done, what questions are asked, etc., it is almost a foregone conclusion the way it's done to say Joe Biden is the best candidate for Donald Trump. What it means is Joe Biden is the best alternative to Donald Trump for the plutocracy, for the people who want some sort of a status quo. Don't ever not understand what is going on here with regards to these particular issues. That is what it's all about. So how do we take care of that? The important thing now, again, disregard the polls. One of the things that the media knows, all these people know, a very important thing, and that is keep people depressed. Keep people fearing, meaning as in fear. Keep people concerned. If you can keep them in that unstable state, they don't do the work that is necessary for our people to get elected. And when I say our people, who do I mean? I'm talking about progressives. So we cannot fall into that trap. Today, the polling look, if you are a candidate who supports Biden, Warren, Buttigieg, or Bernie Sanders, you're kind of happy today on the first part of the polls. They're the four contenders in Iowa, in New Hampshire, and in Arizona, and South Carolina. You're happy with the polls today. But then another poll comes out where we're putting these folks against Donald Trump. You're happy again. Elizabeth Warren is beating Donald Trump nationally by 8 points, and Joe Biden is beating him by 9 points nationally. Sounds good. Then you go into the regular states, what do they call the borders? Not the border states, but the battleground states. And it turns out it doesn't look all that good. Biden is the only one that consistently beat Donald Trump in most of those states, Bernie in about half of those states, and Elizabeth Warren in about one of those states, but tied in two of those states. And you sit down and you wonder, oh my God, should we be concerned about what's going on here? No. At this point, there is no reason for concern because we don't have our values hammered out yet. And in fact, if you want to be technical about it, the biggest problem for Democrats right now is having two messages. We do not stand for a fixed policy. Americans can say, this is what Democrats stand for. As an example, in healthcare, Democrats, the establishment Democrats are no different than Republicans. They want a private system, a system that goes out there and rip their folks off, both theirs and others off. That is what the establishment Democrats are happy about. They're happy to support that. However, if you take a look at the progressive portion of the Democratic Party, they all want Medicare for all. So what people are hearing are two messages. But let me tell you what's the most dangerous part of the message that they're hearing. The dangerous part of the message that they're hearing is that if you have the progressive Democrats running, you have the what they like to call the moderate Democrats running. I call those the not the elitists, but the Republican light Democrats running, and then you have the Republicans, right? Now here is the message Americans are hearing. Americans hear already from the Warren is great at explaining why her policies are going to work, and that's why I like Warren, because she is so much better. It's Bernie's policy that she is so much better at explaining. Okay? But if you have half of your Democrats hitting Medicare for all and all Republicans hitting Medicare for all, you do not have a consistent message, and the average American citizens are going to say, wait a minute, half of Democrats don't want Medicare for all. They want this same bastardized insurance system, and all of the Republicans want it. That is interesting. You have to have a consistent message. What we have to do is put these, I hate to put it this way, but these guys have got to get into, we have got to get the message out and snuff the other part completely out. And the reason why is mixed messages do not win. Mixed messages do not win, and because the American citizens are justifiably going to be concerned. Let me let you listen to how Andrew Yang talks about it. Andrew Yang supports Medicare for all, and Andrew Yang supports Medicare, also supports a private healthcare system, but he does it in a smart way. In other words, he doesn't do it as some sort of a public option that can bastardize the system. Listen to Andrew Yang when Chuck Todd tried to put him on the spot. Listen to this.
Talk a little bit about the current debate happening inside the Democratic primary, and I think in some ways you have tried to have a little piece of every lane that there is that we in the media try to create. But let's talk about the specifics of Medicare for all. You're essentially for it, but you haven't talked about how you would pay for it. We know we're having a big debate about how Elizabeth Warren plans to pay for it. But let me ask this basic question. I had a Democratic congresswoman on. If we haven't fully implemented Obamacare, why should we rip it up and start over?
Certainly, I was a fan of the themes of Obamacare, but many Americans agree that it didn't go quite far enough in terms of coverage and allowing Americans to have access to high-quality, affordable care.
How do you know? It hasn't been fully implemented. That's always been my question. I've heard this critique before. We don't know. Medicaid has not been expanded in 50 states.
And there's a reason for that. So we need to create a path forward for Americans to have access to care. I would not get rid of private insurance. And to me, the pay for it argument is misplaced because we're already spending 18% of GDP, almost $4 trillion, in large part because the system is not designed to keep us strong and healthy. It's designed to make money for the private insurance companies and the device manufacturers and the drug companies.
If you listen to that ending that Andrew Yang gave, that is important. And let me tell you what's important about that ending. Andrew Yang explains exactly the problem with private insurance. Andrew Yang is sort of a libertarian kind of a guy, but very progressive at the same time. He explains it. He explains why we don't want private insurance as the baseline product or the baseline support for the American citizens' health care. And you notice Chuck Todd, in defense of the plutocracy, we haven't really tested Obamacare yet. Where was that concern when Republicans were ripping Obamacare apart all these years, when they decided not to have the Medicaid expansion to the Affordable Care throughout the country? Where was the concern of the media then? They didn't care, right? Because at that point, it was held on by a thread, and just maybe, we would have killed the whole thing and gone back to laissez-faire again. But now that the American people are really in support of Medicare for all, our fallback position is Obamacare, right? Because Obamacare keep those private insurance companies that are ripping you off. You know, that $6,000 deductible that your family has to meet before you can actually get real health care. All of that still applies. You know, in other words, these insurance companies are still not paying out a hell of a lot of money compared to what they really should, right? Keeping 12% or more, 13, 14% of your money. I mean, that is the cool figure they like to use, 13%. I would guess Obamacare tell them they can't do more than 18%. But we all really know that there are all kind of machinations that they have to take more money than that. So there's a whole lot going on, and until you understand it, you keep on doing the same thing. Okay. So, what I want to do now is get into the program. I have a lot of our audience back. So what I want to do is this: I want to give you I want you to listen to this skit from Saturday Night Live. And the reason I want you to listen to this skit is it shows you why our corporate structure is so effective of keeping things the way they are, and it starts internally. And then I'm going to go to the blog of the week. So here we go.
Hey, Dylan, take the lip ring out. It's against company policy.
This one's going out to all the corporate
Okay, the reason I wanted to show that is it shows a transition from, I tell you what, let's go to the blog of the week because I explain it all in the blog of the week. So folks, do you know what time it is?
It's time for the weekly blog post.
Okay, the blog post goes like this. The title of the blog post is Analysis of SNL Skit, Corporate Nightmare, Illustrating How Corporations Use Human Nature to Tame. And it starts like this. Saturday Night Live did some of its better writing this weekend on the SNL skit Corporate Nightmare that illustrates the dilemma. It illustrates the dilemma of activists, community organizers, and others fighting the corporate structure. This blog post is an analysis of that skit. If you have not watched it yet, please do. You guys just watched it. Over the years, corporations have progressively acquired more power. We have granted them personhood. In other words, legally, many times they have more rights than flesh and blood humans as entities. I mean, so a lot of times they have more rights than we do. Corporations are effective in moving public opinion because they can use their virtually unlimited supply of money to purchase think tanks who frame false but plausive narratives that convince many to vote against their own interests. The biggest example is Medicare for All. They are able to convince many that math is invalid. They can convince many, many people. Math doesn't matter. Math doesn't matter. The biggest example is Medicare for All. They are able to convince many that one entity with very few expenses, as opposed to being paid by various entities with exorbitant expensive, multiple CEOs, shareholders, and a whole bunch of bills, can somehow be cheaper than just having one person paying a bill. And after all, it doesn't take much to pay a bill. So corporations have, if you talk about Medicare for All, you have a lot of people, we don't want the government taking care of that, or that is going to be too expensive, or we can't afford it. If we can't afford Medicare for All, we can't afford private insurance. I'm sorry. You can't do. If you can't afford Medicare for All, you can't afford private insurance because it is much more than Medicare for All. But hey, consider reading the Powell Memo, people. Consider reading the Powell Memo, which is a document that details a roadmap laid out by Lewis Powell to ensure the indoctrination of the public to completely submit to the corporate structure. It has clearly been effective, as over the last 40 years, the willful acceptance of the corporate pilfer has been near universal and unabated. But The above is the external interface for the corporation to the masses. There is another side, and that video is the other side, right? The corporate structure must be populated. Most importantly, it must be populated in a manner that ensures its survival. And by the way, I have nothing against the corporations. It's stating how things have to work. Now, I have problems with the way corporations work. I think we ought to have, it needs to be a more equitable system. It needs to be a better system. I personally like cooperatives. But again, this is how it works. And that illustration there tells you much. And here it goes. The corporate structure must be populated. Most importantly, it must be populated in a manner that ensures its survival. As those working for the man feels the abuse internally, some method, a technique, must be found to ensure its survival. After all, there is only room for a few at the top. Not many. There's room for a few at the top. The SNL skit, Corporate Nightmare, in a really funny manner, shows one of those techniques. And here it goes. The SNL skit starts with the boss admonishing one of the low-level employees in the office to conform to the norm by removing his lip ring. It was just the catalyst to the anti-corporate protests. So after he tells him about his lip, he's pissed now. Okay, anti-corporation thing now, right? All the low-level employees joined the protest against the corporate structure. They are all defiant. All of them. They don't want to live within that structure anymore. The boss chooses, afterwards, after they react for a while, the boss chooses one of the low-level employees, commending them for their work and inviting her into the real corporate fold. Human nature kicks in two ways. First, she attenuates her protesting nature as the acknowledgement she receives gives her a feeling of belonging. Oh, she was just acknowledged. She was just acknowledged over everybody else. She got that growth. It's a human thing, the way many react unless we learn otherwise, right? Second, the friends show their concern as they see her being absorbed by the system. So the friends are giving her that look. You notice when she gets the beep and how they look at her like, wait a minute, are you with us or aren't you with us anymore? She keeps her feet in both realms. I love my friends. I love my boss. She loves her friends, but now defends her boss. She cleans up behind the more radical doings of her friends. In other words, they're throwing things down. She's picking them up and putting them, because she's still protecting the friends, but she's making sure and doing things now the corporate way. That is what the song is insinuating. Some of the other friends are brought into the fold. The boss comes and he says, "Hey guys, come to my office. As we have somewhere for you. We want to move you all up." That's how you work, right? The protesters, you get the leader of the protesters, you start bringing them into the fold. That's what he did. As the one who did not get in continued his protest, he is easily neutered when he is finally brought into the fold. Hey, John, you come on in too. Now he's in. These new, no longer low-level employees are now a part of the system. They've been integrated into the system. You would think that, given that they knew how they were before, that they would be in the process a little bit remember where you were before. Their entire philosophy, however, changes as they think they see a pathway to the top. Now it's a dog-eat-dog world. In other words, manipulating human nature ensures the survival of the corporate structure. You know exactly who to move forward. You know exactly who to hire. You know exactly who to push up. The one that gives you not necessarily the best bang for your buck, but the one who can actually keep the status quo. Recently, one of our Houston activists took me aside to discuss our modus operandi with a particular corporatist politician. My statement was, hey, we are good. That politician now has one of us on the inside, so we will know stuff. In other words, if he gets out of line, we'll know it because one of us it's in the inside. The activist then said, you don't get it. As time went on, he was absorbed. Things we scoffed at is okay with him now. Folks, human nature, yes. Does that mean we are doomed? Does that mean that the corporatocracy can always find a way to get to the right people so that we can never get ahead? Here's the reality. The reality we are striving for is being taken because so far we have been unable to show that it is possible for most, and not just the chosen few. We have got to be intentional, bold, and persistent in not telling the story, but telling the how do we get there sooner rather than later. In other words, the corporations play human nature. The people who are bringing the few into the system that ultimately will depress the rest. They're just playing the human game. They understand how humans work. We ought to do the same thing. Progressives, the progressive leaders, the activists, they have to learn to do the same thing. They have to learn how to get what belongs to the people as well. And you know what? We can do that. When I saw that skit on Saturday Night Live, when I put it on Facebook, somebody said, you got a problem if you're looking at Saturday Night Live for real policy or to think of things. And my mind was like, you don't get it. The guy who wrote that skit gets it. The guy who wrote that skit gets it. It's the reason why you have friends that work for corporations. And there's nothing, again, it's not about that you're working for a corporation that's bad or anything like that. What is the issue is whether working for the corporation you are complicit in any of the bad things they do. You are complicit in keeping others down. You're complicit in turning the other way when they're polluting the environment. You're complicit in all these other things that affect people, right? You're complicit when you see the misogyny. You're complicit when you see the sexism. You're complicit when you see the racism, and you don't do something about it. Yeah, you may be protecting yourself, but isn't there a way that you can do to help everyone else? Hi, Lifers. Hi, Lee Grant. Yeah, the system crashed. I'm not going to blame Trump, Lee Grant. I won't blame Trump. But so, ultimately, that skit I found very powerful. I am sorry that today we had a lot of technical difficulties, and it really played into the flow of what I wanted to do today. So it's one of my much less than best shows with the technical problems that we had. I am going to be, until we get our new computer system, it's probably going to be, we're going to have to really kind of cater this baby. So folks, you should go to our GoFundMe and help us get that new higher powered system that won't go through these problems like the crashes that we had today. So just go ahead and also go to politicsdoneright.com and find a way to support us. Please go to politicsdoneright.com, become a subscriber, and you know we do the work that's necessary out there. So become a subscriber to Politics Done Right. Go to politicsdoneright.com, and we have a whole lot to do. We have a whole lot of work that we have left to do, and you can be a part of it. You're given to ensure not only that we win 2020, you're given to ensure that you have people out there telling the message that empower others, the message that let folks know we are not in this stuff to lose. We are not in this stuff for a short term. We are in this stuff to win. We are in this stuff to do good for everybody else. We are in this stuff to make sure everybody has equal access to success. We're not in this stuff about giveaways and all. No. We have work to do. Help us do the work. I was in D.C. last week, Washington, D.C., with the Bridge Alliance, and I was so happy with the work that they're doing as well. You can be a part of all these things. Go to politicsdoneright.com, support us, and let's get busy. It's the end of the show. For those of you who stuck around through the two crashes, thank you so kindly. It's going to be a lot of work put in this, stitching all of this together into the podcast, but we'll get it done. I want to thank you guys so kindly for sticking with me. I want to thank you guys so kindly for being a part of the solution. I want to thank you guys so kindly for those of you who are going to see the reason we need to keep not only progressive media, independent media out there, especially given what you're hearing every day on TV. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right, and you know how I end this baby. I am what? Out!
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Williams. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Williams. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3, 4.